Let's chat about buyer requested repairs from the home inspection period. This is an important one, guys. What happens next when your house is under contract and after the buyer inspections have been completed? So per the terms of the contract, once inspections are complete, then the buyer has some choices that they have to make before their inspection deadline. The buyer can choose to accept the property in as-is condition. They can ask the seller for repairs, or depending on the terms of the contract, they may have the option to cancel the contract if they don't like what they found during that inspection period. So let's discuss the as-is condition first. If the inspections are satisfactory to the buyer and they decide that they don't want to ask the seller for any repairs, then the buyer is agreeing to take the house in as-is condition. Usually though, once inspections are completed, the buyer will send you, the seller, a repairs request addendum asking for repairs to be completed prior to closing at the seller's expense. The buyer, they're also going to include any inspection reports that are showing that those repairs are needed. So once the seller receives the buyer's request, this begins the repair negotiation time period. Super important. We then negotiate with the buyer as to what will actually be repaired. The seller, you can choose to repair everything that the buyer is asking for to be repaired, some of the items, or none of the items. Now, if the seller counters the buyer repair request, then that buyer could choose not to accept the seller's counter offer and terminate the contract. So as we mentioned in an earlier video, this is the second time during a transaction that you will negotiate with the buyer. So our local contract that us agents use, it does limit repairs to things that include like safety, mechanical defects, and systems issues. So say the carpet is worn or your roof is old but not leaking, the buyer cannot ask for those items to be repaired. So I usually suggest that the seller concentrate on correcting, the more critical or safety issues first. Once we have the buyer's repair request, we all sit down together, the seller and the agent, and decide which items you, the seller, are willing to repair. If needed, sometimes we'll get bids from local contractors so you can have a grasp on what the repair costs will actually be. As an experienced agent, I help guide you through these decisions, and many times once an area of concern has been brought to your attention as the seller, that item is then required by law to be disclosed and sometimes even needs to be repaired prior to closing, whether it's with this buyer or later if you go back on the market and have another buyer. So in most cases, it's a good idea to try to work through these issues with the current buyer that you already have under contract. Now, this does not mean that I think you should do every single thing that is requested by the buyer. In most cases, I will encourage you to at least negotiate through the process. We'll find a happy medium. Hi, I'm Anita L. Williamson, and I always want to set you up for selling success.